Hello, everyone. It's Shane Kanto, your Wasteland reviewer, and welcome to the Wasteland Retrospective here on the SPM Crew Podcasting Network. And this is my weekly show where my guest and I each pick a film related in some shape or form. And this week we got some Joseph Gordon-Levitt films. Going to be talking about cancer and pornography. It's going to be an interesting discussion, and I'm joined by my buddy Jeff. Jeff, thank you so much for coming on.
Hello, hello. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. And your pick for this week was 50-50, starring Joseph Gordon-Levitt, directed by Jonathan Levine, starring Seth Rogen, Anna Kendrick, Bryce Dallas Howard, Angelica Houston. There's quite a nice bit of stacked cast here. And this is
Yeah, a lot
apparently
of star
inspired.
power in there.
Yeah. And this is inspired by a true story, a comedy centered on a 27-year-old guy who learns of cancer diagnosis and his subsequent struggle to beat the disease. And I feel like the trailers really sold this as Seth Rogen tries to get his buddy with cancer laid. And that's like a small part of this movie. But
Yeah, I mean
Jeff,
it's not untrue.
he does indeed try to do that in the movie, but that's not what
Yeah.
the movie's about. But Jeff, what are your general thoughts on 50-50?
So I watched this movie, I think right after it came out on DVD back in 2011. I was in college when this movie came out, and I loved it because I was in a very, very big Joseph Gordon-Levitt. I had, a couple of years previously, I had watched um the 500 Days of Summer for the first time.
Mhm.
Had a massive, massive obsession with Joseph Gordon-Levitt films after that. So that kind of led me down to watching things like Brick, and then I got really excited
Mhm.
for, The Dark Knight Rises because I knew he was going to be in that. So I got super, super excited. And a lot of people, when I was in college at the time, a lot of people said I looked like Joseph Gordon-Levitt. So I was like, okay, I gotta keep up the appearance a little bit. Um, and so I don't look like him now, but I did back in college. So um yeah, I really love this film. It just kind of hits that sweet spot in me of comedy. Um and it's the only movie that I actually, or it's the first movie that I've ever cried to. And it's a very and I didn't like cry like bawling. I just kind of like shed a few tears at
Mhm.
the end of the film.
Yeah, side note, see that a little bit. Why people brought that up that you kind of look like Joseph Gordon-Levitt. I've gotten Jermaine Clement, and
I see it.
I'm 100% sure a big part of it's my mutton chops. And now my
Well, that
hair.
I that it's like the hair. I think it's like I'm looking at you right now, and I see, like, you have like a partial beard. Like that's kind of
Mhm.
his shtick too. Like, yeah, they're. It's not even just the chops. It's just the overall look to
He
me.
is my Kiwi doppelganger. But specifically about 50-50, I love this movie because it finds a perfect balance between it's legitimately funny, and I think Seth Rogen goes a long way in making this legitimately funny because
Yeah.
he is funny in this, and he brings some levity to some heavier moments because like there's a particular scene between Joseph Gordon-Levitt and Bryce Dallas Howard that's like really heartbreaking. And it's just like,
Yeah.
holy, and then you just have Seth Rogen coming in there being like, gotcha. Like it's a
Yeah.
legitimately funny moment, but it still doesn't take away from the fact that like what Adam, our main character, is going through is a lot. Like this
Hmm.
unexpected cancer diagnosis. And Bryce Dallas Howard playing that character where it's like she feels some kind of obligation to sticking around with him, but like she's really not ready for what's about to happen for sure. I love the friendship between Adam and Seth Rogen's character Kyle. And there's one particular moment where all it had to do was show a book, and it's just how meaningful the friendship really is. Because
Yeah.
there's tension because Adam gets to a point where he's pretty much given up, and he's just really succumbing to the darkness and this fear and of inevitability of him not being able to survive this. One thing I will say is Anna Kendrick's Catherine is a not great therapist, and
Yeah, I she's maybe the only character in here, and I love Anna Kendrick, but she may be the only character in here that I'm like, I'm not buying your character quite a lot. Like, she's trying to play awkward. She's trying to play I guess the not necessarily a manic pixie dream girl, but she's playing some type of role, and I'm not necessarily buying it in this.
like she Anna Kendrick's charming, and I think that goes a long way. But like, I do feel like this character's like really forcing, like, hey,
Hmm.
I'm trying to be like a cool therapist and try to connect with you, and also it's like, oh my god, my car is really dirty, and like he cleans her car out. There's just so many moments of like you're crossing way too many boundaries of this
Hmm.
patient therapist relationship here. And like, I don't want to be too judgy about stuff like that. I don't have a background in that, but even I'm like, that doesn't seem right.
Yeah.
Um, and you have some really strong supporting turns to like Angelica Houston as his mom is so good. Um, I really do like Matt Frewer and Philip Baker Hall as his two buddies who get treatment at the
Hmm.
same time. And I love their dynamic. And damn, there's that one moment that happens that just really hits emotionally when it comes to like those two characters that have become a consistent fixture in his life,
Yeah.
going and getting the treatment. And this film really knows when to like hit you with a gut punch, and it's like, oh, I wasn't ready for this kind of emotion, and it hits. And it doesn't have to do it like in this overly melodramatic kind of way. It presents something in a very matter of fact way, and you have to deal with the fact that like that's life. Like
Hmm.
that could happen, and somebody could just not be there anymore. And it's just like, geez, this movie, what'd you do this to me?
Yeah,
But I get
I really like that it has a good balance of that like comedy mixed with the heaviness of the cancer subject, and even like what you like the part that I was talking about that like makes me cry is not even like a part that's like the cancer part. It's like, and I'm not really spoiling anything with this, but it's at the end of the film where he's about to go into the surgery and the music starts swelling up, and he says it's the moment where he says the line, "What if I don't wake up?" That's the part that's like, even when I watched it to prep for this episode, I started tearing up a little bit because I'm like, oh my god, I'm back at like the first time I watched this movie, and I heard that for the first time because that's a big fear of mine, is like going into a surgery and going under anesthesia and not being able to wake up. So I was like, oh my god.
well, and where some elements of this film feel like you're watching a movie, and I feel like that's
Hmm.
Anna Kendrick. Like I feel like
Yeah.
she feels like she's a movie character. There and like Seth Rogen feels like Seth Rogen. But like
Hmm.
there's really great moments where it feels very authentic, even with like Seth Rogen's character and stuff like that. This film feels like it's being respectful of the weight of the story. And
Right.
that's the thing. I think one of the reasons why I wasn't super keen on checking this out when I first saw the trailers for this movie was because it felt like they were trying to frame us as like some bro comedy about dude has cancer and his friend tries to get him laid. And yes, there is a sequence of this film that does do that,
Hmm.
but even that has a very sobering outcome too,
Yeah.
because like the reality sets in, in terms of like what would really happen if somebody's like dealing with like their cancer treatment and have cancer, and what if they try to get laid, and it's not a fun time. And
Right.
then you get the cutting of the tension waking up the next morning and just sing Seth Rogen afterwards. And that's why I enjoy his presence in this movie, because he does bring a nice bit of cutting of tension of things along the way. And I think Joseph Gordon-Levitt gives a really great performance here because it feels very authentic, it feels sincere, and it doesn't feel like it's overplaying the fear or the dread that you feel that dread coming over him after a while, and you understand it. And
Hmm.
there's really great moments like, god, it's even the poster is the him shaving his head, and he's like, when was the last time you cleaned these,
Yeah,
like the
I love that
clippers?
scene.
And he's like, I just want you to know you don't use this on my head. It's just like that gag is perfect, and it's such a great button to that scene, which is a very meaningful scene because that's a big part of the process of like before you start losing hair, you shave your head, and maybe it's just your buddy's razor that shaver that he uses for his nether regions when he does to shave his hair, and you get a nice little joke out of that. So that it's interesting because like the title's 50-50 because he has a 50-50 chance of not surviving this, but also I feel like it kind of hits the tone too. It's able to balance that humor and then something more dramatic and serious.
Yeah, definitely.
But Jeff, do you have anything else to add for 50-50?
No, I love this movie. It's been a really long time since I watched it, and I'm glad I was able to kind of get back to it because it just reminded me how much I loved it, and kind of brings me back to like a spot when I was in college and I was going to film school and I was being a writer, and I was like, oh, like I remember all these awesome things I was doing at that time when I watched it. Like me and my friend Steve were living together downtown, and we were or in downtown Chicago, and we were just having the time of my lives. And I was watching a bunch of really like awesome indie movies like these, and it was just a lot of fun, and it just kind of mentally transported me back in time. And that's one thing I like about this movie a lot too.
Absolutely. It definitely has that. This definitely feels like that specific time in terms of like some, because obviously this has enough big names in it, but it still
Hmm.
has that feel of like an indie dramedy,
Sure.
which I could appreciate. And now for something completely different. And Joseph Gordon-Levitt wrote and directed Don John, a movie that will make you never hear the startup of like a computer ever the same way ever again. um, which this stars Joseph Gordon-Levitt as Johnny, a New Jersey guy dedicated to his family, friends, and church, develops unrealistic expectations from watching porn and works to find happiness and intimacy with his potential true love. And yes, this is indeed about porn addiction, and very Italian American, which I can appreciate. But Jeff, what are your thoughts on Don John?
Just another movie that I absolutely love. I remember seeing this right after college with one of my best friends, Jordan, and we just we were obsessed with this movie because we just loved making fun of the New Jersey accent a lot, and so we would always just make fun of, we would just be out at a bar and we would be like doing those accents to each other and just, you know messing around the entire time and making people laugh and everything. But I love this movie for a lot of reasons. I love Joseph Gordon-Levitt is directing, which is something that I've wanted to see from him since I watched 500 Days of Summer. Honestly, I knew he had done little stuff before, but I think was his directorial debut, like his feature debut. And I mean, if you didn't know that, it would be hard for you to tell that this was a directorial debut because it's done so well, from the editing to the cinematography to even him just being like, dual right, directing and acting in it is
Yeah.
just, it's hard to tell this is his first feature film that he directed, because he's so good at doing everything in this.
Well, there's just so much personality to it. Like
Yeah.
this film has a lot of personality when you look at the voice of how this film's put together. Because like there's so many great just like ripples and it just there's certain things that like he knows how to set up a sequence of like
Hmm.
you hear a certain sound or a certain piece of music and you know the beats that are going to come after it, and like I'm just imagining like in the club where it's like oh and then just like cuts, you know what's going to happen.
Yeah.
They make eye contact, boom, they're dancing, boom, they're getting in the taxi, boom, they're having sex, and it just like
Hmm.
that kind of sequence, and it just so perfectly edited. He knows exactly what kind of auditory cues to hit to get you into that moment. And that's the
Yeah.
thing. There's a lot of great use of sounds in this. And just like the bomb. And then of course, like he very obnoxiously is like what that sound does to him. And it's just like, oh well, we know we know where this movie's going. And then it's just like the little montages of, and God, the masturbating montages and how only always ends up with his trash can, and you're just like, oh, look
Yeah.
back at this again. And there's just a lot of like rhythms to it. And I think Joseph Gordon-Levitt has a great handle on one, making them feel fresh and effective and not annoying after a while, but also getting good laughs out of it, and also making you feel like, it's kind of sad
Yeah.
at times, and you just start realizing, like, I don't think this guy's really happy. He keeps telling himself he is.
No, I mean, I don't think it's necessarily that. Like, I think he is happy, but I think it's when he starts dating Barbara that he starts realizing that he's not enjoying the life that he thinks is making him happy. You know what I mean? Like, I think her coming into his life and being as demanding as she was, and being as, as unreasonable as she was at some points, that like he goes, I'm not a fan of this because this is what this meaning her. He's like, I'm not a fan of this. This is what I thought I wanted. This is not what I want. And it takes Julianne Moore's character for her to finally, for him to finally realize that there's more to,
Yeah.
what he's doing than just, watching pornography, or even just, you know, I don't know. I'm losing my train of thought here a little bit, but you know what I'm saying.
Well, yeah, I feel like this film is such a great representation of expectations and trying to manage them and having unreasonable expectations for things, because like it's very clear that Johnny has a very unhealthy expectation of what sex is,
Yeah.
and because like it's all based on the fact that like he's watching porn all the time, and then there's that one moment where he's like, and sometimes I just get sad because it's like
Hmm.
the real thing's never been as good as porn. It's just like, oh no, man. And it's just like
Yeah.
that kind of expectation. I appreciate this film is not afraid at all to tackle these things. And
Right.
you realize that from the start. Like I remember seeing this in the theater and just being like from the beginning, I'm like, oh, so we're diving right into this.
Oh
And
yeah.
you need to actually like deal with this in a meaningful way. And it was very interesting, like, you know, the rhythm of like him preparing for watching his porn and how that's reflected on Barbara watching a rom com. And like it's very interesting, like seeing like these. unfair expectations. Like, yeah, his happens to be pornography, but like she watches too many romantic movies to realize like this is how life really is in
Yeah.
terms of relationships. And Joseph Gordon-Levitt's great, which also like, yes, the accent. Him and his buddy's like, that's a dime.
Hmm.
And then his buddy's like, trees and fours, man, trees and fours. And it's just like different kinds of expectations. And I have to say, the biggest part of this movie that really strikes a chord with me personally, as an Italian American from New Jersey, is his family.
Yeah,
Tony
that's go ahead.
Tony Danza is one of the best Italian dads in any movie ever. Him just sitting there in the tank top, just sitting there watching. It's like, watch the play, Johnny. And it's just like the moment where, which also Glenn Headley, who plays his mom, is just like, I look like a grandmother. Do I have grandchildren? And then dad's just like, yeah, stop it, Johnny, upsetting your mother. And I'm just like, damn, this is
Hmm.
this is it's incredibly authentic for what you wouldn't expect to feel really authentic, but it really is. It really strikes a
Yeah.
chord. And like even like Brie Larson's in this as his sister, and she
I was
has
just gonna bring her up
yeah.
because like she delivered, I mean, she has one line in this film, and it's the film that, or it's the line that encapsulates what this entire film is about, and it's so perfect.
Well, it was so Jersey of Pacific Gordon-Levitt to have a Silent Bob moment um in this movie because she really that's really what she is. She is Monica is the Silent Bob of this
Hmm.
movie and has her one moment and really calls it out. But really I think one of the biggest stars of this movie is Scarlett Johansson because she is so cued into exactly who Barbara Sugarman's supposed to be,
Hmm.
and she owns it. And
Yeah, for
like
sure.
you could just tell Scarlett Johansson was having so much fun embodying this character who realizes she's extremely attractive, realizes that she has a lot of sway over men and she knows how to use it.
Yeah.
And she is, well, one, I hate Barbara. Uh, like as a character, she
Oh
is
yeah.
like not somebody I would want to be in a relationship with, but Scarlett Johansson is so damn good at it. And then Julianne Moore was such an unexpected and really fantastic piece to this film because
Hmm.
it brings all of the depth to this story because so much of Johnny's life is very shallow. Like his perspective on sex and relationships very shallow. His perspective on religion is very shallow because he's the
Yeah.
kind of guy that does whatever the hell he wants all week and then shows up to church and does confession. And being a confirmed Roman Catholic, that's one of my biggest pet peeves is like, yeah, sure, act like an a-hole all week long, and then, but I go to church, and then show up and get forgiven. Um, just so much of his perspective on life is so shallow, and just watching his dynamic grow with Julianne Moore's character Esser, and just seeing that depth being added, and she kind of helps wash away all of this inauthentic perspective that he has on things, even down to like without all the product in his hair and like just feeling his hair for what it is. And
Hmm.
because, like, trust me, I have a lot of family members who use a lot of product and hair like that. My brother. Um, you all can't see this, but my hair is defying gravity all on its own. But like it's that kind of even down to like those little details. And I love his dynamic with her And he's such a great character. And, you know, by the end, I'm like, wow, like he will this relationship work out? I don't know, but he's going to be a better person either way that he's with her and seeing life in this different perspective. I also very interested. I don't think too much about like movies beyond the movie in terms of
Hmm.
like story wise. But if they do become significantly serious, I want to know what it's like when he brings her home to his parents. I want to know what that
Yeah.
interaction's like because I can
Yeah,
guarantee you it's going to
I
be
thought
weird.
I thought about that as well when I would watch this film because I'm like when I first watched it because I'm like, well, what what happens when he wants to bring around like his buddies and stuff? I'm like, that's gonna be awkward. But I love I look past that because I love the final message of this film, and I won't spoil it because it really is something you have to watch and experience for yourself for anybody who hasn't seen it yet. It really is. It I don't want to say it changed my life, but it really made me like step back and like think about my own experience with all of these things and people that I'm in relationships with and it really did kind of put myself in a whole new mindset and I just I love what this movie did for me in that regard.
Absolutely. I distinctly remember sitting in a theater and watching this when this came out and just being so impressed by the end in terms of what they were able to accomplish in a 90-minute film too. Like this is
Hmm.
a lean movie and the journey that Johnny goes on and seeing how not only like through so much of this film Joseph Gordon-Levitt sets up patterns. It's so satisfying towards the end where you see him breaking the patterns.
Yeah.
And it feels so good to watch. And this cast is great. Like we mentioned, like the direction's really well done. And I think this is like a really well written, mature presentation of some pretty taboo things. Like how
Hmm.
many movies actually try to tackle talking about pornography? Not a lot.
No,
And
not a lot.
I feel like a lot of people are uncomfortable talking about it. And I think this is the kind of film that is worth watching. And also be
Yeah.
warned, because like this is an R-rated movie. Because spoiler alert, they do show a lot of pornography. So this might not be a movie you want to go see with your mother. Just
Don't
putting
watch it
that,
with your parents and don't watch it on an airplane.
yeah, this is definitely not the kind of movie you want to play.
One thing I want to take away from this, and it's something that I'm really upset that he hasn't done yet, is this is the last movie that he's directed. Like he hasn't directed any other like feature films since this. He did that Mr. Corman show that was on Apple
Mhm.
Plus, and I
Yeah.
liked that. I think it was a good use of his directing skills, but I'm like, I want to see Joseph Gordon-Levitt direct more movies. He's got a good eye. Let's give him money. Let him write something. Give him the money to make it, and let's see what he can do. I think he's going to be. I think if we gave him that kind of time and money, he'd be a really great director.
Mhm. I think A24 or Neon should be throwing him some money. I think this was
Absolutely.
like Voltage Pictures or something like that. Because I
Hmm.
think distinctly this was the first movie that I saw with that production logo. And like this is a pretty small budgeted movie. And for the record, these are definitely North Jersey Italian Americans. Um
Yeah.
I'm from South Jersey. I don't have I don't sound like I'm from New York or from The Sopranos. Much more Philly, but
Yeah.
still appreciate it. There's some universal things like Italian parents. They really captured that. I want to see
Hmm.
Tony Danza do more things like this movie. So bring it. And yes, it's been 11 years, JGL. Somebody get this man a project or some money to make a project. So
Well, it looks like he's going to be directing a movie it says on his IMDb, him and he's going to be directing himself and Channing Tatum in a movie that is apparently in production or pre-production or something.
What was it, Wingmen? I think
Yeah,
I saw
Wingman.
that. Saw like
It's in
jukebox
development,
musical.
so we'll probably see it in a couple years.
We shall see. But those are our thoughts on our double dose of Joseph Gordon-Levitt today with 50/50 and Don John. Next week's episode, my wife Jess will be back, and we're getting in the holiday season with Jingle All the Way and Home Alone. And next month, Jeff and I are going to be talking about Warm Bodies and A Girl Walks Alone at Night. So, some romantic films with some bit of dark edges. We got zombies, we got vampires. It's going to be
And
that kind of.
fun fact, the director of 50/50 also directed Warm Bodies,
There
and
we
I did
go.
not plan that.
I did notice that when I was looking on IMDb as we were talking. I'm like, well, look at that connections.
Hmm.
So, but Jeff, thank you so much for coming on and always talking movies with me.
Of course, anytime.
And thank all of you for listening. Make sure to like, comment, and share on this episode. What's your favorite JGL film? And also make sure to follow or subscribe wherever you listen to your podcast. The SPM crew is ever growing. We have a lot of great shows about movies and music and television and physical media and comics and sports and all kinds of other stuff. And Luke just talks life with people. So make sure to go check out all of our great work. And make sure to check out High Flyer Creative. They did a lot of great work with our logos as well. And most importantly, thank you as always for tuning in and supporting the Wasteland Retrospective here on the SPDM Crew Podcasting Network.